of an organization. And so somebody came to me, they said, you run a tight ship. You get the meetings in and out. And so that's not the place for me to be silly. That's not the place for me to be my hype. That's the place for me to stay focused and do the task at hand. But that's who I am. That's the difference.
So you can wear different hats. Okay. The face has to stay the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So how would you say for people to do that though? Because I think people have a hard time trying to transition from one spot to another with that. Well, what would you suggest?
I think one of the things is, we have a problem with dealing with people the way they are. Okay. There's always expectations that are set out before us. And so in those expectations, oftentimes we put things on people that don't exist or don't need to exist. I had a situation at work today where one of my coworkers came up and shared a frustration over something that he experienced last week. And I had to put it to bed because, and I put it to bed by simply reminding him, not necessarily of his faults, but because of the fact that to a degree I had to go there. Okay. I'm like, you can't afford to throw stones when your house is glass. I had to remind him of the things that the team had to suffer as a result of his lack of commitment to the process. And once I did that, he was like, okay, I got you. Because initially this was one incident he had with this one individual, and he wanted to throw this one individual over the bus over a singular incident. I said, well, how many times when you go back and look over your tenure here, did the team have to suffer as a result of your lack of? Okay, so don't be quick to throw stones. I said, take everything at face value and recognize the fact that we're all individuals. Strip, and it's okay to have expectations, but when you lay those expectations out in such a way that people can't learn from or grow in that situation, then you're stripping them of the ability to do just that. So I think that we have to be in a place where even though we we have expectations for people, even regarding work or church or home, we still have to base it on this one simple fact that people are going to do people things.
That's right.
Okay. People are going to do people things. And so with people doing people things, what does that look like? So, you know what I mean? I don't believe that we ought to strip away every expectation. There's some things that as parents that we need to be firm about because it gets our kids where they need to be at. At work, if you're in leadership, there are things that in that leadership capacity you need to maintain in order for your team to run effectively in terms of what they need to do. But at the same time, if those expectations are way too high, and people don't fall in line with them, then you end up throwing them under the bus unnecessarily. So I told him, I said, listen, don't throw this guy out with the bathwater. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let him be who he is and develop into who he is, and you do the same. Because if that was the case, I would have long ago chucked you to the side because of the things that you had or had not done. So,
and I want to say just a little different than what you're saying. Yeah. Can you what?
You better agree with me.
Okay.
You're right.
I have learned that when you're not being your true self, you get this feeling. It's like I can't really explain it. You may not even feel it in the moment, but you may feel it later. Like, ooh,
you're right.
That really wasn't me. Why did I do that?
Why'd I say
that? And not saying it so far as beating yourself up, but knowing that, man, I'm trying to be like X, Y, and Z. For example, a lot of times in the music industry, you have people trying to sound like somebody else. Don't try to sound like somebody else. Sound like yourself.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. A lot of times you do have that feeling. Again, it may not be right then and there because you're blowing and going and you're doing your thing, and then you get home like,
So I think with that, okay, since you mentioned music, I think sometimes because everyone is watching what looks like it's selling or what's motivating, you kind of stick in that mode and not realizing that your voice is valuable also.
I think it depends though, because if you look at, the neo soul, like, Jill Scott, her, they're not like the and I'm not speaking against it, you know what I'm saying, but they're not like the music of what's his name, Little Yachty and all
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? It's from what I see as an outsider looking in, that they're true to what's inside of them.
Right,
They're true to it. And even though I hear what you're saying, but it always takes that one to say, you know what? I don't care what you say. This is how I feel. Now I'm a starch. I'm going to tell you, I love myself some Prince. I'm still in mourning. Yes, I am. I'm in mourning. Yes, I am. Okay?
That's funny.
But look at it. But because he like, did my sister say that?
Yeah, right. Sorry, Lisa, because my mother was the same way with Prince.
Yes.
Yeah. We and not to cut you off, to deviate from your story. My mother, when I was growing up, our bathroom was done in Prince.
Stop.
So I used to have to go to the bathroom and lift up the commode, and there was a picture of Prince in the bottom of our commode.
That's next level, bro.
My mother loves Prince.
I don't love him that much.
Yeah, right. She does.
Like, that's extreme.
Like when Purple Rain came out, my mom was Purple Rain out.
We all were.
Everything he
That's
had,
extreme.
everything, like she wasn't an impersonator, but that was her guy.
Yes.
That's her go-to guy for everything was Prince.
Yes. But thinking about that, look at him. He came on the scene. I was in high school. He came on the scene. He did not look like anybody else. He didn't sound like anybody else. Back in 19.
No. The reason why I looked that way, because I think he was in the middle. You get what I mean? So he was in the middle of rock and funk and R&B. Like, he was kind of
right. But
if you know his earlier stuff, Talk Dirty and all that stuff. So his earlier stuff was he was coming off of Bootsy and all that.
right.
So he was funk for a minute.
Yeah, no,
and rock. He was rock for a long time. It's just that, just like everything that we touch, we put soul in it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So he put his own flair in it.
Yeah.
And he built a
it.
following behind
That's
it.
it.
So,
being committed to who you are.
That's right.
That's it.
Right.
Well, again, without trying to move off the dime from recognizing the fact that as individuals we all have value.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that, again, that they don't necessarily teach per se. In school, they tell you be good, do what you do. And they kind of make you kind of separate yourselves from people because they want the emphasis to be on you.
Right.
But there's not really a clear direction about what to do when you do separate yourself.
Right.
How do you distinguish yourself from everybody else without it becoming offensive, without it being something that doesn't add value to everybody else? And I think that along the way, the challenge is to learn how to do that so that you can still be that person, be that individual that does add value to those around you.
Right.
I remember when I first went to work for the limo company, and one of the guys that was a good friend of the owner came up and one day, and so I think I'd been there like 2 years, and this is the first time I had seen this guy face to face. He talked about him all the time. The owner did. And so he comes up and like every other word out of his mouth is a cuss word. Every other word. So so the owner was like, "Shut up! You can't talk that way around DJ." Right? He's not that guy. And so I told him, I said, "Listen, man."
Did they know you was from West Philly?
In West Philadelphia.
No, not born, but raised. So what I told him was that, listen, I said, I need you to be you. When you see me,
That's right.
I need you to be you. I don't care about the language. As long as you're not using that at me, right? If that's your tone, if that's how you flow, if that's how you get your message across, I'm good with that. Okay, don't be different than who you are just because of the fact that I'm somebody that you think doesn't do or doesn't perform I don't use that kind of language, but that don't mean that you can't.
Right.
If that's what that's how you speak, you need to be you.
Right, but a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
they're like,
they do.
"Oh my gosh, they are this, they are that. I can't be myself in front of them." And I'm looking at it this way. First of all, the God that we serve, you do all that in front of him anyway. We're not better than him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
Yeah.
I've had that same thing. Oh my gosh, you can't say that in front of Lisa. Listen,
Why
I am
not?
LISA. I could care less. For real.
Did
you
she
have
just
to
spell
be,
it out for us
I
in
did.
sign language?
In sign language. Y'all should have seen that. That was crazy.
But she spelled it out in silence.
Yes. You want me to do my whole thing?
We're not on video, baby. Okay?
Right?
It was for them.
Yeah, okay. It's for them. I got you.
But for real, if that's who you are outside of our presence, why you got to be something else in front of us? That means you're being fake.
Right. And I don't want people to be fake around.
Right.
I want you to be you.
My expectation is that when you come around and you see me, if you're not being you, I don't know what else might be in the picture.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's my whole thing. I need you to be genuine to who you are.
Right.
Because you being genuine to who you are allows me to be genuine to who I am. You know? So if I don't go that way, we still cool. You know, because my expectation is that I don't want you to change to be different around me.
You better tell it.
Go ahead, give me a high five. I know you want to give me a high five. There you go.
And they gave a high five.
Go ahead.
That's right.
You know, so I just want our listeners to know, though, even though I know I said all these other wonderful things about these two, Lisa is also an author, which kind of lends itself to what we're talking about today, about just being you are enough, keeping it 100.
With yourself.
Oh, with yourself.
2.0.
2.0.
Say it right.
All right. Let's say it again. I am sitting here with author Lisa Bryant.
Lisa Wright Bryant.
And she had the title of the book is You Are Enough. Mm-hmm. Keeping it 100 with yourself. 2.0.
That means you're taking it to the next level.
That's right.
And you can find that book on, she'll say it a little later. But I just want y'all to know that, you know, what we're talking about lends itself to what you're speaking about in the book. And if you follow her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even her own podcast, she's talking about just keeping it real.
That's right.
And even though we didn't mean to talk about keeping it real today, we were trying to talk about other stuff.
We can talk about other stuff too.
Well, we are still.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, but I want to say that I want our neighbors to understand that you do have a voice and that you are valuable.
Absolutely.
And that in any situation, keep it real with yourself.
That's right.
Because you don't know your actual voice can make you $1 million.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's the part that we really miss.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, you're so caught up what's being shown on TV.
Oh my gosh.
And things like that, you know, because that's what's thrown in our face. But that's also great marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can get caught up in social media. What we see in social media, we see, oh my gosh, they living it up, or they're doing that they're my age or they're younger. How could they do it? And then you start bashing yourself. If you are not confident in yourself, then you start second guessing yourself. You start like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And I know to some people that don't understand it, that sounds like an excuse. But to people that can relate to it, it's like, that's me. Because that'll start taking you down the road. You're like, oh my gosh, you're not only keeping up with the Joneses, you keeping up with the Johnsons, the Smiths, the Ortizes, and everybody else. For real. You start trying to keep up with it and you're losing yourself.
Right.
So go ahead. I see your face. Come on.
Oh, no. I'm listening to you.
Okay. But you are, because if you're not careful, I'm not bashing social media because I am on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on it. And I look at it this way. It is a good tool. But if you're in a place that you cannot, it's attacking your confidence, then you may have to come off it. It's just like it's just like the news. Yes, we need to watch the news. We need to see what's going on. But if the news is affecting you negatively, then you may have to step back. And so that's the same thing. So when we talk about you are enough, keeping it 100 with yourself, you got to keep it real. You have to keep it 100 with yourself. Listen, my name is Lisa Wright Bryant and I'm struggling with confidence. My name, you know what I'm saying? Because at that point, then you'll have a DJ saying, get yourself together.
Right.
Well, you know, and it's funny you say that, because for real, you know, one of the things that I learned and I teach myself is that if you look at people that have an addiction, whatever that is, okay, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whatever, the first thing that has to happen in order to overcome that addiction is acknowledging the fact that problem exists. Okay, and then once you make that acknowledgement, then you can start to take steps toward changing that outcome, changing your situation, changing your environment. You start to change things that'll bring about the change necessary for you to be different in what it is that you're trying to trying to be. And so But you can't do that until you recognize that there is an issue. And I'm not saying a problem, because all the time these things, we tend to over dramatize things, and we say, oh, that's a problem. Well, everything's not a problem. It just may be an issue that you need to resolve.
Right.
Okay, so how do you go about resolution? How do you go about creating change in your environment? And so you got to find a way to be able to do that, whether you go to counseling or whether or not you do some self